When Microsoft announced the pricing of Microsoft 365 Copilot back in July, a lot of people, including myself, were fairly taken aback, as that $30 a month price tag represents such a huge leap in cost for any of the base licenses it would be applied to. However, as I've seen lots of content spring up with suggested approaches on how to decide who should get Copilot and who should not, I'm going to take a position that's somewhat contrary to all the advice I've seen so far. In my opinion, the right approach is just buy it for everyone. So you're probably thinking that I've gone crazy with such a suggestion, but keep watching and I'll tell you why I think it's the right answer, how businesses should really be thinking about the cost of these tools, and what, ultimately, the cost to your business might be if you decide to take a cheaper approach. But before we dig in though, there's a little background we should be aware of. The US federal minimum wage is $7.25 per hour, so the very minimum any business is paying for a full-time worker each month is about $1,250. And that's just for the salary. If your business offers healthcare or retirement savings, or even allowing for you paying employer taxes, the bill goes up. At $30 a month, Microsoft 365 Copilot, or its competitor Duet AI for Google Workspace, represents less than 2.5% of pay, and in terms of time, 57 minutes per week. But even jobs that were once firmly minimum wage jobs are no longer minimum wage. In many places, you can make at least double this rate on your first day stacking shelves or flipping burgers. So you definitely don't see many information-focused, office-based jobs where you might be wondering about whether you should deploy Microsoft 365 Copilot or not, advertised at $7.25 per hour. In fact, according to ZipRecruiter, the average US wage for an entry-level office assistant role is $18.13 per hour. For this type of role, a Microsoft 365 Copilot license represents slightly less than 1% of pay, or 23 minutes of time per week. Should any office-based worker be able to save 23 minutes per week using an AI tool like Microsoft 365 Copilot? Well, of course they should. And as you move through your company to look at more expensive workers, this number will come down radically. For a worker on the average US salary, which according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics is a little over $59,000 per year, a Microsoft 365 Copilot license costs a little over half of 1% to pay and has its costs covered in less than 15 minutes of time saving per week. If this content is valuable to you, please do remember to hit the like button, and if you want to see more like this, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon so you know as soon as I release my next video. Also, if content like this would be useful to people in your network, please do consider sharing it there too. Thanks. But the thing is that simply looking at time saving is problematic. As according to the ADP Research Institute, workers on average work an extra between just over 5 and about 8.5 hours of unpaid overtime per week, depending on their age. This represents all those extra 5-minute tasks, evening emails, early morning phone calls, that project that just has to be finished before you can leave for the day. Companies are getting the benefit of all this extra time, and there's a strong likelihood any AI efficiency gains will accrue back to workers by reducing this time, not actually adding to the bottom line. So in a work culture where workers saving time isn't going to automatically generate more output because they are generally expected to deliver off-the-clock output for free, what measures might appeal in boardrooms across the country? Productivity is the measure of outputs versus inputs. So if we put $30 into a Microsoft 365 Copilot license and that input generates $300 in outputs, that's not a bad deal. But if it generates $30 or even $0, that's really not so good. The problem is that while in a macro sense we're great at measuring productivity, on a micro or individual worker level, we're horrible at it. For some types of roles it may be more clear-cut, but for many it's actually really tricky. Last year, the New York Times ran an interesting article looking at the issue of the modern productivity score. There's a link below if you want to dig into this. The examples given were pretty scary. One was a senior vice president of a company who was making more than $200 an hour, who wasn't being paid for anything that couldn't be tracked by her computer. So when she was talking, when she was writing on paper, even when she was thinking on company time, she wasn't automatically being compensated. Anyone who would argue that this is an accurate reflection of productivity is crazy. As workers, our total contribution to our companies is far more nuanced than the hard work outputs that are tracked or are even trackable. How much effort do you put into your team succeeding, or in being a positive influence in the workplace, or helping with the training and coaching of newer employees, or just being a person who's accessible to someone who's having a tricky day? In your average office environment, there are dozens of things going on all the time that on one hand can be viewed as distractions to your core business, but on the other hand are a vital part of running a successful business where your team members are engaged. For every position where there are really strong measurable outputs, like an outbound salesperson, there is another where those outputs are always going to be rather more fluffy, like someone working in HR. And it's been well evidenced that the best salesperson doesn't necessarily make the best sales manager, so there's definitely something more complex going on here than just the people with the best metrics are stars and everyone else is a lazy slacker. What does this have to do with Microsoft 365 Copilot though? Well, I'm getting to that. Giving your most valuable and probably most expensive employees the very best tools for their work is vital to any business's overall level of success. This is the foundational argument I've seen from those who are advocating being highly selective in the deployment of AI tools, where the cost of those tools must be balanced against the cost and payback associated with the employee or level or type of employee you're considering equipping with Microsoft 365 Copilot or some equivalent tool. This is a sensible argument, but I think it overestimates the ability of top-level team members or star employees to overcome factors that cause organisational inertia in the opposite direction. Poorly engaged employees, those who are doing the minimum possible, or quiet quitting in today's parlance, churn caused by staff turnover, or other factors that cause your productivity bucket to become leaky. These are issues that must be addressed in the long term if you want to succeed, and can even make it difficult to hang on to those highly compensated, highly productive top performers who were lucky enough to be given those Microsoft 365 Copilot licenses. The promise of AI technology isn't just about getting more done, it's about doing work better. The 9 PM ping of an email arriving has just as much impact on the work-life balance of the $18.13 an hour office assistant as it does on the $200 an hour senior vice president. Mundane, repetitive, low engagement tasks can tank motivation and morale at any level of your hierarchy. Having greater flexibility to keep on top of complex topics and even meetings can be a benefit that's felt by someone involved in just one project at a time, or someone who's involved in 20 projects at a time. According to the Society for Human Resource Management, on average it costs just over $4,000 to fill a vacancy in a business. By the way, this would pay for Microsoft 365 Copilot licenses for 11 employees for an entire year. It also takes 42 days to fill a position, and this doesn't factor in all of the soft costs in getting that new person up to speed when they arrive. In my experience, every vacancy puts pressure on managers and on other team members and tanks progress on issues that might be important but are not urgent. And vacancies also mean that HR teams have to focus on recruitment and onboarding rather than things that add greater value like employee engagement. The average company will see voluntary turnover in about 1 in 40 employees per year, so a company of 200 might expect to spend $20,000 on hard recruitment costs and lose 210 days, or nearly 81% of a work year, in unfilled positions every year. But employee engagement is a big lever in this. According to Gallup research, highly engaged workplaces can see up to a 67% reduction in employee turnover. Put this all together, and it becomes obvious that the potential of AI to have positive or negative impacts on any business stretches far beyond the immediate productivity gains of any one worker using those tools. Over the last few years, attitudes to work have changed radically. The acceptance of different types of treatment for different hierarchical levels has reduced, and whereas once the workday extending at the whim of your boss or colleagues was just part of the job, it's now seen as a big problem by many. No one sees their Outlook email account as a job perk, but if a tool like Microsoft 365 Copilot truly does give any worker the ability to get time back, it's more likely to be seen in the same light as a benefit like flexible working, rather than tooling that's just there to get more done, like a QuickBooks license. The entry-level associate who up until now has tolerated their boss's Sunday evening emails may find them rather more frustrating when she has to wonder whether they were generated with that prize Microsoft 365 Copilot license that's been bestowed to the bosses but not to her. Say you're one of those workers who up until now has been used to working unpaid for 8 hours each week, and your business gives you Copilot and that saves you a few of those hours. You're still working on your own time a bit, and the whole benefit is to you, so you're not actually getting any more done. But when you receive a job offer from a competitor that doesn't use AI, how much would it cost them to get you to go back to giving up more of your free time again? For a per worker investment that is at maximum 2.5% of pay, that seems like a pretty attractive benefit to offer, and one that will help to boost engagement and maximise retention in the long term. Now, you clearly don't have to buy it for everyone, but you should buy it for everyone whose role includes a reasonable proportion of the types of work that can be supported by a product like Microsoft 365 Copilot. And if that's found to have benefits in your business, you should definitely then look at options for other types of roles to be supported by AI. For example, your service technicians probably don't need Microsoft 365 Copilot, but they may well benefit from some of the AI-powered resource scheduling options coming online in Dynamics 365. The point is that you're using AI as a catalyst to improve work, which in turn improves your business, rather than just seeing AI as a tool to directly increase revenue without all the steps that are to do with your people that are in between. The fact is, if you're solely thinking of the cost of Microsoft 365 Copilot, or Duet AI for Workspace, or ChatGPT Enterprise in the direct dollar-for-dollar work outputs you'll get in your business, you might be missing the point. These tools will definitely deliver benefits here, but their impact will be far wider and transcend the types of measures you have thought about before from your Microsoft 365 resources. I wouldn't be surprised if in years to come we need to state whether a role gets access to the best AI on job ads to recruit the best talent, or if upgraded AI allowances become part of retention negotiations. One thing is clear. If you don't deploy Microsoft 365 Copilot, there's probably a competitor down the street who will. And remember, you're not just competing for the highest paying customers, you're also competing for the best talent, and your decisions on how to use AI in your business may have a big impact in both of these areas. What do you think? Have I convinced you these expensive tools deserve mass deployment? Or are you comfortable with the cautious and limited approach? Let me know down in the comments. I hope this video has been useful to you. Until the next one, bye bye.